As Adam grew old, he longed for one thing: the fruits of paradise. His children set out to find them. On the way, they met angels carrying axes and spades. The angels told them, "Turn back, your father's time has come." And gently they took his soul. They washed him, wrapped him in a shroud, and dug his grave, just as Muslims do to this day. They laid him in the earth and taught his sons, "This is how you bury your dead." Adam, the first of mankind, passed at 960 years. Allah gave Idris, peace be upon him, glad tidings. He would earn the reward of every good deed done on earth until the end of his days. This blessing filled him with joy, and he gave thanks to his Lord for so great a favor. Yet Idris had grown old, and he knew that death was drawing near. He loved to spread goodness in the world, and was not yet ready to depart from it. Among his friends was one of the angels, whom he asked to seek a delay of his appointed death. So Idris rose upon the angel's wing and ascended through the first, second, and third heavens. But at the fourth heaven, Allah commanded the angel of death to take his soul, exactly where it had been decreed. Idris did not dispute. He accepted his fate, saying, "If this is what Allah has ordained, so be it." After the great flood receded, the Quran records little of the long years Nuh, peace be upon him, still spent among his people. When at last he felt the end drawing near, he gathered his sons to his bedside for a final counsel. His first charge was the heart of all faith: always believe and declare that there is no God but Allah. Then he warned them to keep far from associating any partners with Allah and far from the sin of pride. Having given this heartfelt advice, Nuh, peace be upon him, passed away peacefully at the age of 950. Traditions differ on his resting place. Some say his grave lies within the sacred mosque of Mecca. Others hold that he was laid to rest in an ancient place called Baalbek. Unlike so many others, no authentic narration records the final moments of the Prophet Hud, peace be upon him. And so we can only assume that he died a gentle, peaceful, natural death. Some reports say he passed away in the region of Hadramaut, in present-day Yemen. It is said he was laid to rest there, in that ancient desert land. To this day, a site known as the Tomb of Hud still stands in eastern Yemen, and the faithful still journey to that quiet valley to remember him. After the people of Thamud were destroyed, only Salih, peace be upon him, and a small band of believers remained. Together the survivors migrated away, leaving behind the ruins of their rock-carved city. The Quran tells us nothing of Salih's life once Thamud had fallen. Yet local traditions around Mount Sinai say he and his followers escaped into the mountains. With no record of how his story ended, we can only assume he passed away naturally. And so Salih, peace be upon him, rests unknown somewhere among those quiet hills. Scholars differ over the age of Ibrahim, peace be upon him. Some say 169 years, others 175 or 195. Yet all the narrations agree on one thing: he lived well beyond 150 years. Islamic tradition tells us that Ibrahim, peace be upon him, died a natural death, with no illness and no unusual events surrounding his passing. He passed away peacefully, having completed his mission and given his whole life to the worship and obedience of Allah. He died in the land of Canaan, in what is today Palestine. And there he was laid to rest, in a city now known as Hebron. After leaving the ruined city of Sodom, Lot, peace be upon him, and his daughters journeyed back to Prophet Ibrahim. Reunited, they continued together to carry and spread the call of Islam. Prophet Lot then settled in the land of Palestine, as some historical reports relate. There, a few traditions say, he passed away, his soul returning to his Lord. He was buried near the city of Hebron in that blessed land, and his grave is said to lie close to the resting place of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. Ishmael, peace be upon him, was the beloved son of the Prophet Ibrahim. Together with his father, he raised the foundations of the Kaaba in Mecca, the sacred house that still stands today. From his childhood, Ishmael remained in the barren valley of Mecca and never left it. There beside the well of Zamzam he lived out all his days. It is believed he died of old age, though the details of his passing are not known to us. He was buried in Mecca, laid to rest beside his mother, Hajar, within the sacred precinct. Ishaq, peace be upon him, was the second son of Ibrahim, a prophet born into a house of prophets. He and his brother Ismail had different mothers, and so the two grew up in separate households. Ishaq was given two sons, Yaqub and Esau, and through them his lineage continued. Allah granted him a long life, and he lived until he was 180 years old. In his final days an illness took hold of him, though which sickness it was, we do not know for certain. When he passed, his sons buried him in Hebron, laid to rest beside his father Ibrahim. And so the cave of the patriarchs at Hebron came to hold father and son together in the earth. Yaqub, peace be upon him, was the son of Ishaq, father of Yusuf, and had 12 sons. His jealous brothers cast Yusuf into a well and brought back his shirt, stained with false blood. Yaqub wept for his lost son until his eyes turned white and his sight slowly faded. Reunited at last with Yusuf, he spent his final years in peace in the land of Egypt. Sensing death was near, he gathered his children and asked whom they would worship after him. They pledged the one God of Ibrahim, Ismail and Ishaq, preserved forever in Surah Al-Baqarah. His soul returned to Allah, and by his wish he was buried in Hebron beside his forefathers. Yusuf, peace be upon him, spent the last of his days in the land of Egypt. When he passed away, the people fell into dispute over where his body should rest. So he was placed in a marble coffin and set within the Nile, that those on both banks might be content. Yet Yusuf had charged his descendants never to leave Egypt without carrying his remains with them. Centuries later, the children of Israel were led out of Egypt toward their promised freedom. His grave was found, and his coffin was raised at last from the river. And his remains were carried to the Holy Land, where he was buried in peace. Ayyub, peace be upon him, was given one of the hardest tests any believer has ever endured. One by one, his vast herds and all his wealth were stripped away. He lost his family, and the home that once surrounded him fell silent. Then his own health failed, and a long illness confined him for years. Yet through every loss, Ayyub remained a patient, grateful, and righteous servant of Allah. So Allah told him to strike the ground, and a cool, healing spring gushed forth. His health, his family, and his wealth were all restored and blessed anew. He did not die of his illness, but passed peacefully. His grave and its place remain unknown. Shuayb, peace be upon him, was sent to the people of Madian, calling them back to honesty and worship of the one God. His people cheated with the scales, so he warned them to give full and fair measure. Like several prophets before him, Shuayb was not struck down. He died gently of natural causes. Allah blessed him with a remarkably long life, one that stretched across many generations. He lived so long that he met the young prophet Musa, peace be upon him, when Musa fled to Madian. By the well of Madian, Musa watered the flocks and served Shuayb faithfully for years. And in his great old age, Shuayb passed away in peace, his soul returning to his Lord. As Musa, peace be upon him, grew old, Allah sent the angel of death to take his soul. The angel came in the form of a man. Not knowing him, Musa struck and wounded his eye. The angel returned to his Lord, and Allah restored his eye and sent him back. Place your hand on the ox's back, he was told, each hair beneath it, one more year of life. Musa asked what would follow those years, and the angel answered simply, then death. Knowing death would come regardless, Musa chose to meet his Lord rather than delay it. He asked only to die near the Holy Land, and Allah granted his wish. And so Prophet Musa, peace be upon him, passed away near its blessed borders. Harun, peace be upon him, the brother of Musa, grew old, and Allah decreed that his time in this world had come to an end. It is said that Musa walked beside him up to Mount Hor far out in the wilderness. There the two brothers found a beautiful bed already prepared, and Harun lay down to rest upon it. And there, gently and without pain, Allah took his soul in peace. When Musa returned alone, some of the children of Israel accused him of killing his beloved brother. So Allah caused the angels to bear Harun's body aloft, in full view of the people. They saw that he had died a natural death, and Musa was cleared of every accusation against him. Dhul-Kifl, peace be upon him, is named among the patient and the righteous in the Book of Allah. Tradition says he earned his name by taking up a solemn pledge, a burden he carried faithfully. He vowed to fast by day, stand in prayer by night, and judge only with justice. So he served his people diligently, keeping his covenant without ever tiring. The details surrounding his death are not known to us, only that he remained faithful to the end. His tomb is thought to rest in Iraq, near the place called Kifl, though this remains unproven. Dawud, peace be upon him, was both prophet and king, given the Zabur, a beautiful voice, and mastery over iron. A hadith tells that when Allah showed Adam his descendants, Adam saw Dawud granted only 60 years, and, out of love, gave him 40 of his own. Fiercely protective of his household, Dawud once returned home to find a stranger who had entered without permission. The man said, "I fear no king, and no barrier can keep me out." And Dawud knew at once he was the angel of death. Though he possessed the riches of the world, Dawud did not cling to it. He welcomed his Lord, and his soul was drawn out gently. Thousands gathered to mourn him beneath a sun so fierce its heat pressed down upon every head. Then Sulayman, gifted the speech of animals, called upon the birds to spread their wings and shield the people from the blaze. They held their wings outstretched until the burial was done, the first sign of the great authority Allah had given Sulayman. Sulayman, peace be upon him, was the son of Dawud, and like his father, he was a mighty and wealthy king. Allah gave him a gift no other king had. He could speak with the animals and command the jinn. As his years grew long and he felt his end drawing near, he made a quiet request to his Lord. He asked to die standing, leaning upon his staff, watching over the jinn who labored on his great building, and Allah accepted. The angel of death came silently and took his soul while he stood upright, still resting on his staff. To everyone around him he still seemed alive and watching, so the jinn kept working, day after day, for a long time. Only when tiny termites ate through the wooden staff did it snap, and his body fell to the ground. As the Quran tells in Surah Saba, all then knew. Even the jinn, for all their power, do not know the unseen, only Allah. Of Ilyas, peace be upon him, scholars preserve two accounts of how his life on earth came to an end. In the first, he died naturally and in peace, having named Al-Yasa his successor before he passed. In the second, he watched in grief as his people abandoned Allah and turned back to their idols. Heartbroken by their wrongdoing, Ilyas beseeched his Lord to take his life from among them. And Allah answered, sending down from the heavens a blazing chariot of fire. Ilyas was raised up, still living, carried beyond the sky into the presence of his Lord. But before he departed, he appointed Al-Yasa, peace be upon him, to carry the guidance onward. The Quran gives us no details about the death of Prophet Al-Yasa, peace be upon him. Scholars believe he lived a long life in the service of Allah, guiding his people, and that in the end he passed away peacefully. There are different claims about where his grave lies. Some say in Syria. Others place it in Iraq, and still others in Palestine. Yet for none of these locations is there any clear, certain proof. Only Allah knows the full truth. Yunus, peace be upon him, left his people in anger and boarded a ship crossing troubled seas. When a violent storm rose against the vessel, he was cast down into the dark waters below. There a great whale swallowed him whole, sealing him within layers of deep darkness. From the depths he cried out, glorifying Allah and confessing that he had wronged himself. Through that prayer Allah delivered him, casting him weak upon a barren shore. A broad gourd plant was made to grow and shade him as he healed beneath the open sky. It is said Yunus, peace be upon him, later died naturally and in peace, his grave unknown. Zakariyya, peace be upon him, was the father of Yahya and, by marriage, the uncle of Isa, 3 prophets whose stories are bound together. After the children of Israel murdered his son Yahya, Zakariyya was left to carry a grief almost beyond bearing. Emboldened by that killing, a mob full of hatred set out to take his life as well. Zakariyya fled, and by Allah's permission, a tree opened its trunk and closed around him, hiding him within. But Shaitan spotted a corner of his garment showing through a crack and pulled on it to expose his hiding place. The mob brought a saw and cut the tree clean in two, straight through the prophet still inside it. So Zakariyya was martyred in a cruel and bloodthirsty way, killed by the very people he had spent his life calling to Allah. Yahya, peace be upon him, was beloved by the people for his purity, and his unwavering call to the truth. In his time, a king desired a marriage to a close relative, a union that Allah's law clearly forbade. Yahya declared this marriage unlawful before the people, and his words enraged both the king and the woman. In one account, the woman first tried to seduce Yahya himself, and when he refused her, she burned for revenge. The woman tempted the king until he was overcome, and he promised her whatever her heart desired. As her price, she demanded the head of Yahya be brought to her upon a platter, and the king agreed. Soldiers came to his place of prayer and martyred him, a prophet slain only for speaking the truth. Unlike the belief that he died on the cross, Muslims hold that Isa, peace be upon him, was never killed. Instead, Allah raised him up to the heavens, alive in body and soul, and he remains there still. Surah An-Nisa, verses 157 and 158, declares they did not kill him nor crucify him. It only appeared so to them. Near the end of time he will descend again, a just leader who follows the way of Prophet Muhammad. He will defeat the Dajjal, break the cross and kill the pig, restoring true faith to the earth. He will help overcome the tribes of Yajuj and Majuj, bringing justice after an age of oppression. For about 40 years, he will live as a righteous Muslim, marrying, raising children, and worshipping alongside the believers. Then he will pass away peacefully, and the believers will bury him with love beside Prophet Muhammad in Medina. In the 11th year of Hijrah, 632 CE, the final prophet fell ill, beginning with a severe headache and a rising fever. His wives, out of love and care, agreed he should be nursed in the house of Aisha, and he was moved to her small room. Even in pain, he stayed devoted to his ummah, urging kindness and to hold tightly to the Quran and his Sunnah. When strength allowed, he led the prayer himself. On other days, he asked Abu Bakr to lead the people in the mosque. In his final moments, resting against Aisha, he whispered, "O Allah, with the highest companions," and passed away peacefully on a Monday. Grief overwhelmed the companions until Abu Bakr reminded them, "Whoever worshipped Allah, Allah is alive and never dies." He was washed, shrouded, and buried in that very room, as he had instructed that prophets are buried where they die. His grave rests within Al-Masjid an-Nabawi in Medina, his passing sealed prophethood, yet his light still guides billions.